We're going to learn. We're on page. You have the mimer in front of you? Good morning, Avram. How are you?
Baruch Hashem, I'm doing okay.
Okay. So let's learn.
Working pretty hard.
What? Okay.
I say I'm working pretty hard these days.
Okay. Well.
It's good to get some seeds in my brain.
Okay. Let's put some seeds into your brain now. Let's go to the paragraph that begins with. Omnam tzarech lias. It's like it's the second to the last, I think, paragraph of the mimer. Omnam tzarech lias tzarech lahavim madua nitna yetzer hara laadam. Do you follow that? Do you have that?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay. Omnam. Okay, good. Chavre, let's go. Good morning to Yoini. Good morning, everyone. Let's learn. However, tzarech lahavin, we must understand, madua nitna yetzer hara liadam. Why did God give a person a yetzer hara? Bisman har b'kodim a yetzer toiv. We learned that the purpose of the yetzer hara was to transform it. But the Rebbe asks a very simple question. Okay, no problem, but why not give them equal footing? Why does the yetzer hara come to a child from birth, and the yetzer toiv only comes at bar bas mitzvah? It's not fair. That's his question. Shadei yetzer toiv, bali adam Yosef ben Yogimul Sham, and the yetzer toiv comes to a person when he's 13. Ukadisa, to a male. Ukadisa b'medrash Rabbah posik toiv, yeled misachen b'chochem b'melech v'zakein ksil. Better is a sick child and a wise child from an old foolish king. Toiv yeled b'miskan v'chochem zeh yetzer toiv. This refers to a yetzer toiv. V'lo menikra shmo yeled. Why do we call him a yeled, a child? If he she'ein mizdavik lo adam ela ben yigimul shana v'lo maylo, because he doesn't come to a person till the age of 13. V'lo menikra shmo miskan. Why is it called a miskan? Next. If he she'ein akol she'imim lo, nit alle herren in, not everyone listens to him. Und es ist faran azelchen, there are such, was villain nit herren, that don't want to listen to him. This means, as es is Rachman litzlan, azahanocha, there is such an attitude. Adas was the yetzer toiv, zogt zol menchat sholem nit herren. There is an attitude that whatever the yetzer toiv says, you shouldn't listen to. Umarim becoming yonim eich sheyev shalashmayeloi, and one shows to himself reasons why we shouldn't listen to the yetzer toiv. Umanichim roisham verubam limtzailas v'sibas al kulais v'yetedim, and that individual puts his head and his most of his body into excuses and reasons why he should be makel, lenient, and heterim, and find permission to do whatever he wants to do. So in other words, so that's why it's called Miskin. In other words, he's old, he's weak, he's not. No one's listening to him, right? Why is he called Chacham? Why is the other one called Chacham? Because he teaches people how to go on the right path. He teaches creatures to go on the right path. So this type of person is better from an old foolish king. Why does the Yetzer hara call the king? Because everyone listens to him. There are those that just want to listen to him. There is such a custom, as those was the Yetzer hara zogt zolmen im Rachman litzlan herin, that there are those that God forbid are going to listen to the Yetzer hara of Yeshvan Keilu, and then there are those amongst the ones who learn Torah, those from Keilu Yonasin, the koicha de'teira adif lahu. They find the permission, the power of permissibility is more superior. This is a quote, by the way, from the Gemara. Koicha de'teira adifu. When you have Yoni, when you have koach isser, the koach of forbidden, and the koach of heter, the Gemara in certain places says koach de'teira adif. It's better to be permissible, right? It's better to be positive. Let's put it in our simple words, Avram. It's better to be positive than negative. The problem is that sometimes we take this and we say, I'm going to use the power of heter to find excuses. And my entire Judaism is a Judaism of excuses. Oh, there's a heter for this, and there's a heter for this, and there's a heter for this. You know, you can always find a rabbi and a ruling to rely on. V'hein heima, says the Rebbe, this is a malady. Mikoyre harav shepeschem pesach rechova. This opens a wide opening. V'shar knisa, and a wide gate. L'chol minishikuts v'tiu v'rachomon aslan. To all kinds of disgust. You hear that? In other words, in this issue that you're being lenient, you have a good heter, Yonason, right? The problem is not this issue. The problem is that you're training yourself to find heterim. Says the Rebbe, this is disgusting. Why? What does it show about your whole attitude to Yiddishkeit is? You don't give it, excuse the expression, you don't give a damn, you don't care. And that's why you're always finding excuses. So yeah, here you found a great excuse, a great heter. But if there's a pattern in your behavior of excuses and saying you're allowed to do this and this, you can almost do anything. You know why? You'll always find a rabbi and a rav and a shita in the Gemara and the authorities that follows your shita. I'll give you an example. The Alter Rebbe, the Balatanya, in his Shulchan Aruch rules that the Shkia is 18 minutes, right, after lichts in the candle lighting time. The Rebbe, our Rebbe, when he would go to the Ohel, many times, Yonason was there, he can attest to it, he would come back very late. It was dark outside. I remember once in the summertime, he came back at 10:30, 11 at night. Shkia was like 8:30, it was like 2 hours later or so. So I asked some of the people, you know, the Rebbe was so religious and so frum, is there a source in halacha? They said, yeah, there's a shita of the Rambam. According to the opinion of the Rambam, it's still considered a day, it's not considered night. Now, did the Rebbe use this every day? Absolutely not. Here he was davening at the oil for Klal Yisrael. He was praying to God to help Yidden, who wrote to him letters and had all kinds of problems. So it was Mesiras Nefesh. So he put aside the norm that one time or whenever he went to the oil, and if simply there wasn't the time, the amount of time to be able to daven earlier, he came late and he used the heter of the Rambam that it's still mincha time to daven mincha. Because trust me, if there wasn't a heter in halacha, he would not daven mincha, but he would daven 2 mayros, 2 shmon esreis. You know the halacha, right? So, and you know that, and you know in the earlier years, in the 50s, the 60s, when he would go to the oil sometimes, and it was very late at night, he would stop in the middle of the way on Atlantic Avenue at Balshon Printing, Rabbi Mordechai Schusterman, who was the Balkori in 770, he had a printing press called Balshon Printing on Atlantic Avenue, I believe, and he stopped, and all of a sudden he showed up, and he davened mincha there. And once he davened mincha, I think on the road, you know, later for whatever reason, I think the Balshon moved away. I don't know why, but he went back to 770. The point I'm making is, there is a time when a heter is justified. But if you make a lifestyle of a heter, it's not justified. So that's the way I would classify the difference between a legitimate heter and not a legitimate heter. If it becomes a lifestyle, it's not legitimate. if it's once in a while as an exception to a rule, it's acceptable. Clear? So that's why the Rebbe writes here, the previous Rebbe writes here a very, very harsh language. This is an opening for all kinds of bad. It's very harsh. And it's disgusting and vulgar. Yes, Avram, you wanted to say something? No, not you. Okay, let's go weiter. Why do we call the Yetzer Hara Yoni? An old man. When does he come to us? From our youth, until our old age. So he's a real old guy. The Yetzer Hara is an expert. And he does his work with great craft and talent. He comes to everyone based on the person's essence and situation. And he knows how to manipulate. That's why in this medrash that we're quoting, he's called an uman, a craftsman, an expert craftsman. The yeshnei poyel, the yeshnei uman. Says the Rebbe, there's two things. There is a worker. Avram mentioned to me that he's working very hard. There is a worker. Then there is uman. What's uman? We don't mean yoini uman, but Reb Nachman. Although it might be spelled the same way. Uman means a person who's a worker, but he's an expert. Right? From the word emuna, and there's another emun, which means he's an expert craftsman. What's the difference between a poel, a worker, and a uman? A poel, a worker, is someone who does work, but mashahu in yoni, he does what his job is. However, ha'uman, an expert worker, who the hamalacha v'hapoyel u'ba'ofe he be'imun u'v'hidur. A craftsman doesn't just do work. He does meticulous work. He does beautiful work, like a carpenter who makes very specific types of carpentry and cabinetry, etc. That's an ummah. He's not just someone who knows how to bang a nail into a piece of wood. That's a worker. Here you have someone who's able to use his hands in such a way that he could design and make something very, very articulate and beautiful. So now he goes back to the Medrash. This is why the Yetzer Hara is called the Uman. The Yetzer Hara does his job with tremendous skill and craftsmanship. Rahman al-Islam, lo yaleinu, but Rahman al-Islam, God forbid. And he's able to make many people stumble because of him. In things that are not at all age appropriate.
Wow.
This is so you don't find this in my Morim. You know, excuse me, the dirty old man. Like, get over it, man. You're an old man. Calm down. You had your fun already. No, he's still cooking. This is Leila Fiadach Shneisayim. This is not appropriate for his age. You know, you're not a teenager anymore. Your passions and hormones are calm down already. You had your fun. Go on. Or with anger, or with taiva, or with kavod, with honor. You were already honored enough in the newspapers when you were 30 and 40 and 50 and you had lots of money. They put your name all over, enough already. And the Yetzer Hara makes someone stumble, Yoni, in such a way that really they themselves wouldn't dream of doing this. Now, one more term is used in that medrash. He's called the Yetzer Hara ksil, a fool. Why is he called a fool? Because he teaches a person a bad way, a foolish way. Hence, we call him a fool. When it comes to the different descriptions of the human species, the speaking species, yesh kama toyarim. There are many different expressions.
Name.
Thank you. Vehem Adam, only 4. Adam, man, Ish, person, Enosh, 3. Those are 3 out of the 4. The Enosh, hu madrega yosektana. The word Enosh, which means human, is the lowest of the 3. Pirush, shehu Adam cholosh b'mailos anushiyas. This refers to a man who is weak in human qualities. V'hainu she'ein b'lei mailos hamidus. This fellow doesn't have the virtue of good character, and he doesn't have the virtue of strong intellect. And they're called, such people are called brios, by definition, creatures. So the word enosh refers to someone who is not strong in intellect, not strong in character. Basically, he's just a creature. Now comes the one above that, the Torah Ish. The Torah Ish, Moire, this denotes Amilas Hamidas B'midas B'nei Adam. This denotes someone who's strong in the quality of character amongst people. As it says, Ki Ish Kvurasoi. A person with his strength. So what do we see? That this person, this Ish, the name Ish, refers to someone who's displaying a strong character in that situation. So in other words, it denotes character. Hainu b'midas shal pi haseichel. This person's midos, this person's character is guided by intellect. And therefore, Yonason, we call him Ish Vurasoi, because he's able to make his seichel guide his midos. So his midos don't go out of control. That takes a strength. That takes gvura. Now he goes to the third name, and the advantage of all 3, who b'toyar Adam, is the description of the human in the word Adam. Shemoide, which denotes al-mailas ha-moichin, someone who is an intellectual, someone who thinks about everything, and before the person acts, it's thought out, it's meticulous, and it's very, very disciplined because of the mind. Says the Rebbe, although man's advantage is also in such character behavior that's guided by seichel. So if so, why do I use the term of what's it called, of Adam for mochin, for seichel, when if you have healthy character that's guided by the intellect, why do we use the second the term ish instead of the term Adam? That's his question. Mikol Mokim, he answers his question nevertheless. It still does not refer to the ultimate completion, wholesomeness of the mind. In other words, yes, the mind is, there's enough of the mind there to guide the character. That's true. But you're not going to say that this person is so solid as an intellectual, meaning to say as someone who everything he does is moach shalat al alev, right? The heart controls the mind controls the heart. That's not the person. There's 2, by the way, Yonason, there's 2. In chapter 12, the Alter Rebbe mentions the concept of mind over matter, and in chapter 17 in Tanya, but there's a difference between the 2. In chapter 12, I believe he talks about the very pure mind over the heart. And he says, B'toldusai, you're born that way. Chapter 17, I think, don't quote me, I have to look it up, I don't have it in front of me. But in chapter 17, he's talking more of a practical, intellectual process over the heart, which might be the difference between these 2 terms for a human being. Adam versus Enosh. Now he brings it back to our discussion of the Yetzer Tov and the Yetzer Hara. And this is the difference between the Yetzer Tov, Shehu Yeled Chacham, a child who's wise, Umalamed Gamis Abriyos, and teaches even creatures L'derech HaYeshara. The Yetzer Hara is so great that it takes an ordinary person who's only in the third category of Enosh, Briyos. They don't have strong intellect, they don't have great character, they're basically existing. And the Yetzer Tov educates, and or better said, the Yetzer Tov has that individual who's just a creature behave properly. That's a great accomplishment. V'hainu, the Gamelu Shem B'niyas Behal Bilvad, he now talks out, he explains what I just said. Even those that all they are is just creatures, Klema, Chalushim V'refuyim, they're weak, B'daitam V'amanosim, in their comprehension, Aval Heim Isnagim Al Pi Torah, they conduct themselves according to Torah, B'zehirus, with carefulness, V'hidur Hakiyim Mitzvahs, and they beautify mitzvahs, Maisios, of deed, V'shoimim La Yetzer HaTov, and they listen to the Yetzer Tov, L'lechas B'derech Yeshara, to follow in the right path. Hey, these people are b'mailu madrega gavoya v'naila, in a much higher level. You know why? The bottom line is, they're doing what God wants. They're not no big intellectuals. They don't have a stellar character. But when it comes to mitzvahs maisius, bottom line mitzvahs, they beautify the mitzvah. Why? Because they're told this is the way you should do it. They don't ask any questions. They don't have issues, and they just do it the way they're told. So the Rebbe says they're a lot higher. The Enosh person, who on the outside is lower than Adam and Ish, but at the end of the day, they're higher. Why are they higher? Because they just do what they're told to do. And as we see, b'muchesh, in actuality, b'kama noshim pshutim, with many simple people, she'enam yoidim Torah, they don't know any Torah. Ve'en lohem shum havona binyon mitzvahs, they have no understanding and comprehension of doing mitzvahs. V'rakshoyim la Yetzer Tov, they just simply listen to the Yetzer Tov, l'lechas b'derech yeshara, to go on the right path, b'kiyam ha-mitzvahs, and doing mitzvahs maisiyas, b'tfilah, in prayer, v'achzokas Torah, and supporting Torah, v'olam be'ilu b'mailus Torah, and they climb rung to rung, higher and higher in good qualities. L'umas, compare this to the opposite. In the Yetzer Hara, melamed u'poel lira. What does the Yetzer Hara do? He teaches and makes someone do bad. Gam al mishu b'mailas adam. He takes the person who on his own would be an adam, the highest of the three descriptions, an intellect, and the Yetzer Hara works on that adam. Yeah, and he says, and I'll give you an example, says the Rebbe. Look at this, he says. He takes this great intellect, like I told you over and over the story, Aristotle, the man, the genius of all people, the smartest person, and he finds himself in doing something very inappropriate. And when they ask him, they say, at that time, I wasn't Aristotle. So what happened over here? The Yetzer Hara got to Adam. The Yetzer Hara got to someone who epitomized intellect and brought him down to be like an animal. That's what he says. And he becomes what we call a shaita, a fool. Why a fool? If you're so smart, and you're so bright, and you're so disciplined, and now you act this way, you're a real fool. Uksiv, and it says, to the opening, sin sprouts forth, jumps forth. Amar Hazal, the Chazal say in the Gemara, Yetzer hara shoylet bi adam mishas yitzi oz la'olam. The Yetzer hara dominates a person, a human being, from the moment you come out of your mother's womb. Uksiv, and it says ki Yetzer lev adam ra min harav. The heart of an inclination of man is bad from its childhood, from its youth. The Isa Yerushalmi comes along Yerushalmi, Brachas Pei Gimel Halacha Hey, Minu'urav Ksiv. It says, right, the word is Yoni Minu'urav, which means youth. The Gemara says, don't read it as the word youth, but read it as another word. Let's see what it says. Mishah Shehu Nenayer V'yotze Le'olam. The word Ne'urav, there's another Hebrew word, Na'arin, Nenarav, to shake, shake. From the moment that the fetus is shook out of the mother's womb and comes out, so why is that? He says, why? Going back to the original question. Shah. Shlema. Shah. It's not fair. In other words, as soon as God shakes the little fetus out of the mother's womb into the world, already the Yetzer hara is there. Is that fair? The Hey Nemes, and it's true. And true, the Yetzer hara was given koach, strength. Sheyuchel is gabal Yetzer hara, to overcome the lilkid as a to capture the small city. This refers to the body zel haguf. The Chazal say that the fetus doesn't come out from the mother's womb until you administer an oath. This is the beginning of Tanya. And what is the oath? We give the oath to the soul, be righteous. The question is asked on this. What will an oath help? When giving an oath to the godly soul, the nefesh elokis is always righteous. It doesn't need an oath. It's going to act good. And it's known. The nefesh elokis, the nefesh abamish, heim tzadik v'rosha. Tikach otem dat zu unser Zimmer. That the nefesh elokis, nefesh abamis, are the tzaddik and the rosha. Sheheim zakoi v'chayav, which means obligated and responsible. The nefesh elokis hu tzaddik, the zakoi shem lab tzibir l'derech yishara b'almadei. The nefesh elokis is righteous, who seeks to bring a person and creatures all to God. And the Yetzer hara is always finding merit on a person, why the person should merit to the world to come. Conversely, the nefesh abamis, who Rasha, Shemalamad is Adam, Lorab Almadein, the nefesh abamis teaches a person to be bad on this earth, and the nefesh abamis and the Yetzer hara go and they inform the heavenly bezdin, the heavenly court, hey, this guy was bad on earth, and therefore he shouldn't have a portion of the world to come. So this goes back to this question of Imkain, Ma moyel nefesh abamis. What will help administering an oath to the nefesh abamis, the animal drive, hashvu shemashbi al nefesh elokis? Now it goes like this, I'm sorry. Who gets the oath? The neshama, right? Yonason. That's the nefesh elokis. The nefesh elokis doesn't need it. 1 second, Yonason, 1 second. The nefesh elokis doesn't need it. And how will the oath to the nefesh elokis help the nefesh abamis? They're two different people, two different drives in man. It's like you're not talking to the right party. I just want to conclude the paragraph. What does this shvua mean? It comes to the word shvua is associated with the word satiate, soveya. God satiates with greater amount the nefesh elokis, the godly soul, that he has the power to overcome the desires of the nefesh abamis. The koyach zeh hu madrege al yoinamoi, this power that God satiates the nefesh elokis with is so great. From this perspective, the Yetzer Hara, and it's all of stuff, makes no difference. Because nevertheless, Yochel Yetzer Tov Lachnia, the Yetzer Tov is given the power, and he has the mechanism to overcome. Okay, do the Yetzer Tov, the Yetzer Hara, Shoshim Mitoyel Tikkun. I'll explain this tomorrow, Mitzvah Shem, that they come from Toyel Tikkun, from the world of chaos and the world of correction. V'hakoyach nitma Yetzer Tov, and the koyach is given to Yetzer Tov, who m'prinis akudim shelamaylam Toyel Tikkun, comes to be in a higher place that's above chaos and Tikkun. Yes, Yonason.
Yeah, two things. First of all, you're talking about the Yetzer Hara coming into the person, the baby, before the baby. The Yetzer Hara cannot come into the baby before it comes down in the womb. Otherwise, the Yetzer Hara will force the baby to fight its way out of the womb and hurt the mother.
Okay.
So that's how crazy the Yetzer Hara is. So the Yetzer Hara is given to the baby only when it comes out into the world. That's the first thing. The second thing is that how do we see the Yetzer Hara in a baby? A baby is such a cute little thing. The mother likes the baby, the father likes the baby. He's so cute. How do we see the Yetzer Hara in a baby? So the baby starts crying, right?
Right.
The mother thinks the baby crying because he's hungry.
Right.
And the father thinks the baby crying because he's wet.
Right.
The baby's crying because he's crying. The Yetzer Hara makes him cry.
Right.
I am here. Look at me. I am here. Take care of me. I'm the oldest thing in the world. There's
Right.
nobody else.
Right. Yashikoyach. Chevre, we'll go, thank you very much, Yashikoyach. One more thing, go ahead.
Where are you? You're in Florida?
Yes. I'm in Florida, yes.